Good morning, my dear learners. I'm Glarmina, Academic Counselor, IGNOU RC Cochin. So today we are going to start our next unit, that is Unit 8, Aggression and Violence, Block 2, Unit 4. So let's start with the definitions. So aggression can be defined as a behavior whose goal is the injury of the person towards whom it is directed. It includes both physical and verbal aggression. So when we think about aggression, we first think of the physical force, but we should include the verbal form of aggression also when we consider aggression. Okay, so it includes both physical and verbal aggression. Aggression is any form of behavior directed towards the goal of harming or injuring another living being who is motivated to avoid such treatment. So the target person should be always motivated to avoid such kind of harm or injury by the other person. And aggression is defined as behavior aimed at causing harm or pain, psychological harm or personal injury or even physical distraction. Okay. So, and the important aspect of aggression behavior is the intention underlying the actor's behavior. So, we should consider the fact that a person or a physician who is doing injury to a patient cannot be considered as a form of aggression, because the intention towards the act is to help the person rather than harming him. So the delivery of an aversive stimulus from one person to another with the intent to harm and with an expectation of causing such harm when the other person or the target person is motivated to escape or avoid the stimulus. Next comes the nature of aggression. So as I've told you before, this harm is to be intentional and the victim is motivated to avoid it. So we can say that aggressive behavior can be considered as a part of normal developmental process. So earlier, the children who lack verbal skills, their aggression will be predominantly physical in nature. So they may show temper tantrums, screaming, crying, biting, kicking as an expression of their aggression. But later, when communication develops, their aggression can be in the form of verbal acts also. So, in early stages, crying, screaming will be the way of aggressive behavior and the intention will be instrumental. And the early stages, we can see that the aggression is a form of response to parental authority. And later, we can see that the aggression may be directed towards their peers as the social interaction increases. And during early adolescent period, we can see gang fights and use of weapons also. And it's a kind of a severe or a serious form of violence. So the harm can be physical, psychological, relational, and a specific form of antisocial behavior also. And aggressive behavior is an important component of several common mental health disorders in young people. Like for example, for conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD, and explosive disorders. Next comes the types of aggression. There are many classification and there are different types of aggression. The theoretical perspectives on aggression suggest that typographically and functionally distinct subtypes of aggression exist. So first classification is given by Feshbach in 1970. It is called as clinical classification. So according to him, there are two forms of aggression, first form and second form. So in the first form, affective, reactive, defensive, impulsive, or hot-blooded aggression can be seen. So it can be considered as a violent response to physical or verbal aggression initiated by others. So it is a kind of reactive aggression. And the aggression will be relatively uncontrolled and emotionally charged one. In the case of second form, it is a kind of predatory aggression. So it is instrumental, proactive or cold-blooded form of aggression. It's a controlled way and it has a purpose, lacking in emotion that is used to achieve a desired goal, and it includes domination and control of others. So that is the first kind of classification. Next is instrumental versus hostile aggression. Is given by Atkins et al. In 1993. So according to him, there are two kinds of aggression, instrumental aggression and hostile aggression. So instrumental aggression, it produces positive reward or advantage on the aggressor, unrelated to victim's discomfort. But in case of hostile aggression, it is to induce injury or pain upon the victim. So the negative impact can be seen upon the victim and there is no or little advantage to the aggressor. So that is another type of classification. Next comes proactive and reactive aggression. From the terms we can define this type of aggression. So in case of reactive aggression, we can see that it is enacted in response to provocation such as an attack or an insult. So it is manifested in both self-defensive and angry action. In case of reactive aggression, so for reactive aggression, it is in response to provocation, and in case of proactive aggression, it is not initiated with a provocation such as we see in bullying behavior. So here the motive is to obtain goods for asserting power, assuring the approval of reference group and other such goals. So it is not in response to provocation. So reactive and proactive aggression are equivalent to affective and instrumental aggression. Next comes positive versus negative aggression. So positive, from the word we can say that the positive aggression is meant for a healthy, productive purpose. It promotes survival, protection and happiness for the aggressor. And in case of negative aggression, the purpose is to injure or to show destruction and injury to other beings. So these are some kinds of or types of aggression. Next comes the measurement of aggression, how aggression can be measured. So here are some methods or ways to measure aggression. So rating scales filled by parents or school teachers, child behavior checklist, self-report measures like Burrs, Durkee, hostility inventory, then measured by observers like overt aggression scales, then reactive proactive aggression questionnaire, official files of the police, court and correctional agencies, then self-report measures, self-reported delinquency, then psychopathy checklist revised one. It's a rating scale designed to measure traits of psychopathic personality disorder. Then clinical projective tests like TAT. So these are some of the ways to measure aggression. Next comes the causes or determinants of aggression. So the causes can be classified under 6 major headings, that is biological causes, personal causes, social causes, cultural causes, situational causes, and additional causes. So first comes the biological causes that determine aggression. So the first one is brain dysfunctions. So we can see that among aggressive criminals, they have poor brain dysfunctions. Poor brain functions, especially we can see that there is poor functioning of the frontal and temporal regions of the brain. And among aggressive psychopaths, they show excessive slow EEG wave. And there is reduced glucose metabolism in the prefrontal region of the brain. And it is seen that among antisocial personality disorder individuals, there is 11% reduction in the volume of prefrontal gray matter when compared to normal and psychiatric control groups. So the reason behind is the brain dysfunction, it predisposes to aggression because the prefrontal region of the brain, it control and regulate limbic brain structures like amygdala. So the amygdala, when it causes dysfunction, it will be less able to keep these aggressive impulses, so resulting in the likelihood of impulsive or aggressive acts. Next comes testosterone. So it is a sex hormone and it plays a key role in shaping aggressive behaviors. So among aggressive violent offenders, we can see there is significant higher level of testosterone, and in females, when the progesterone level is low, the criminal acts will be seen as more. And weightlifters who take anabolic steroids leads to more aggressive and hostile acts, and normal men who are given testosterone become more irritable and hostile. Okay, these are some of the research results. Then comes the role of serotonin. It is a neurotransmitter. So aggressors are having low level of serotonin. Next comes the nutrition deficiency. So before that, there is birth complications. So it is found there is there is complex relationship because of this environmental factors. So social dominance, alcohol consumption, etc. are other factors. Birth complication alone have link with aggression and violence. Birth complications with psychosocial risk factors like disadvantaged family environment, poor parenting causes more aggressive behavior among people. Forceps delivery, CNS damage also predispose aggressive behaviors. Next comes nutritional deficiency. Food additives, hypoglycemia, cholesterol and deficiencies in iron, protein and zinc can cause aggressive behaviors. So malnutrition, it impacts brain growth and development and predispose individuals to antisocial and violent behaviors by impacting cognitive functions. Next comes environment and genes. So twin and adoption studies suggest a large shared family environmental effect, a moderate non-shared unique environmental effect and a modest genetic effect. So typical twin concordance rates for adolescent delinquency are 87% for monozygotic twins and 72% for dizygotic twins. And the adoption studies suggest that genetically vulnerable children may be especially susceptible to unfavorable family conditions, and this genetic element seems to be stronger for adult criminality than childhood conduct disorder and delinquency. Next comes the personal causes. So we have just finished biological causes of aggression. Next is personal causes. So in that, first is personality factors. It is explained through TAS model, the traits as situational sensitivities model. It suggests that many personality traits function in a threshold-like manner, influencing behavior only when situations evoke them. So people who are having aggressive traits, even with a moderate level of provocation, they would trigger intense aggressive reactions. Next comes type A behavior pattern. So term type A was introduced by Friedman and Rosenman to describe an individual's set of personality characteristics. So the type A behavior pattern is a pattern of behavior consisting primarily of high levels of competitiveness, time urgency and hostility. And the type A individuals are seen as more prone to aggressive and hostile behaviors. So the third cause is narcissism and ego threat. So narcissistic individuals are basically highly self-centered and they hold very over-inflated view of one's own virtues and accomplishments, and due to their inflated self-image, narcissistic individuals perceive themselves to be the victims of transgressions. So they are found to show more aggressive acts. Next is sensation seeking. Sensation seekers are ones who are highly impulsive, adventurous, seeks new experiences and gets bored quickly. So it is found that these persons are showing high levels of aggression, and it is due to many reasons, like they experience anger and hostile feelings in higher amounts when compared to others, and their emotions are easily aroused. They have lower thresholds for becoming angry, and their tendency to get bored and to seek exciting new experiences may lead them to have more hostile thoughts. Okay. And another cause is gender difference. The males are found to be more aggressive than females, which we all know, and more likely that females to engage in various forms of physical aggression such as kicking, punching, hitting, etc. But females, what they do, they usually include verbal assaults, spreading vicious rumors about the target person, gossiping behind this person's back, telling others not to associate with the intended victim, making up stories to get them in trouble, etc. These are the forms of aggression with which females show. Next comes the social causes of aggression. First is frustration. There is a hypothesis called frustration aggression hypothesis given by Doll and Miller. So according to that hypothesis, the frustration always leads to some form of aggression, and aggression always stems from frustration. So here frustration is considered as a powerful cause of aggression and can arise due to many factors such as environmental or natural calamities, accidents, personal limitations, lack of aptitude, others' ill intentions, etc. Another factor is provocation. So it is another major cause of aggression. So direct provocation from others, either physical or verbal, often play a powerful role in eliciting overt aggression. And kinds of provocation includes condescension, harsh and unjustified criticism, and teasing. Next, heightened arousal. It is explained through excitation transfer theory. So it says that heightened arousal created by such sources as loud and unpleasant noises, competitive activities, and even rigorous exercise has been found to facilitate aggression under certain conditions. So, as a result, some portion of such arousal may persist. as the individual moves from one situation to another. It's because this physiological arousal, it dissipates slowly over time. According to Zillman, arousal occurring in one situation can persist and intensify emotional reactions occurring in later unrelated situations. So, according to him, our thoughts can lead us to rephrase various emotion provoking events, as a result of which we would reinterpret the situation, and this cognitive activity in turn may well influence your emotional reactions that leads to aggression. So, strong emotional arousal sometimes produces cognitive deficit. It's a reduced ability to formulate rational plans of action or reduced ability to evaluate the possible outcome of various behaviors. Next factor is exposure to media violence. So, exposure to violent television, movies, video games, and music increases the likelihood of aggressive behaviors by people exposed to them. Okay. So, and such effects can be both short term or long term, and the magnitude of these effects is large, real, and long lasting sometimes. So, it has been found that the more violent films or television programs participants watch, the higher their level of aggression. Next, violent pornography. It means viewing sex films involving violence. A large number of research studies indicate that violent pornography leads to aggressive behavior. Exposure to violent pornography also leads to desensitizing effect in which the viewers react less negatively to the violence in these films as they watch more and more. So, they perceive the crime such as rape as less serious, and they report less sympathy towards the rape victim, and it indicates a greater acceptance of false beliefs about the rape. Okay. So the more and more we see these kind of films, the less empathy we show, and it's more likely to cause aggressive behaviors. So we have finished biological causes, personal causes, and social causes. Next comes the cultural causes of aggression. So, certain cultural practices with respect to honor, sexuality, etc., are filled with violence and aggression. So, cultures of honor and sexual jealousy, these are two factors. So, culture of honor, it refers to those cultures in which there are strong norms indicating that aggression is an appropriate response to insults to one's honor, and insults to one's honor must be avenged through aggression. Next is sexual jealousy. It's a perception of threat to a romantic relationship by a rival for one's partner. So females experience stronger feelings of anger at both the partner and the rival than males do, and they are more likely to react aggressively to such betrayals. Next comes the situational causes of aggression. The two most important situational factors that can influence aggression are as follows. First one is heat. So heat increases aggression, but only up to a point. Beyond some level, the people become so uncomfortable that they lack the energy for engaging in aggression or any kind of vigorous activity. So, it's in a study by Anderson, Bushman and Groom in 1997, the result shows that there is correlation between temperature and violent crimes. The hotter years did indeed produce higher rates of violent crimes, but that they did not produce increase in property crimes or rape. Crowding is another factor. So it leads to physiological arousal and aggression with exemptions. When we feel that our personal space is invaded, the aggression is more likely to happen. And its example is aggression can be mostly seen among heavily congested roads. Next, another factor is noise. Unwanted sound can cause negative effect, and it is still more if it is too loud and unpredictable. Another factor is alcohol. We know that alcohol and aggressive behavior are closely related because it impairs our cognitive functions of higher order such as rational and logical thinking. So it makes us more impulsive, resulting in higher levels of aggression. Additional causes includes parental rearing styles. These are all very significant factors that can cause aggression. Poor supervision, erratic harsh discipline, parental disharmony, rejection of child and low involvement in child's activities can cause aggression among children. Parent-child interaction pattern, another factor. Antisocial children in families where children are not encouraged little for polite or considerate behavior. Parental influence on children's emotions and attitudes. Disorganized attachment patterns, experiencing fear, anger and distress on reunion after a brief separation. Frightening, unavailable and inconsistent parenting is another cause. The children become hostile and have difficulty in judging other people's feelings. These are the results. Next factor is difficulties with friends and at school. Children who lack social skills to participate, they show more aggressive behaviors. Who face peer rejection and who associate with other antisocial children, these are people who are at risk. They fail to succeed and it contribute to persisting aggressive behaviors. And predisposing child characteristics. ADHD children who are easily provoked, delinquents who show irritability, explosiveness, who lack social awareness, social anxiety, and who seeks reward seeking behaviors are more prone to aggressive acts. So the causes behind this aggression we have finished. So we discussed about biological causes, personal causes, social causes, cultural causes, situational focus and additional causes behind aggression. Next comes the perspectives on aggression. The theories that explain aggression. So first is psychodynamic theory. So it says that we have both life and death instincts in ourselves, and the conflict between these two instincts, it results in self-destructive tendencies which leads to aggressive behavior. So actually this conflict creates a tension within us, and this tension needs to be released. So we are releasing these tensions either through sublimation or through displacement defense mechanisms, and failure to relieve these aggressive impulses may result in an outburst of uncontrollable aggression. Okay. So next theory is frustration aggression theory. It's based on the theory, the hypothesis, frustration aggression hypothesis given by Dollard and Miller. So it says that frustration occurs when an individual is exposed to external stimulus and that cause discomfort or anger within them. For example, prolonged queuing, overcrowding, failure to achieve goal, etc. So these frustration, it builds up in an individual until it is discharged through aggressive act or response. So Dollard claims that frustration always causes aggression and aggression is always caused by frustration. Okay. Next is evolutionary perspective. So according to this perspective, human aggression is considered as adaptive in nature, and that aggression acts help individuals to perceive their genetic material. So studies of mate selection among human beings as well as aggression among animals have revealed that aggression confers many evolutionary advantages among individuals of a given species and help them to successfully survive and adapt to their environment. So aggression is considered as adaptive in nature and it is meant for survival. So next perspective is cognitive neo-association theory. So here it says that this aversive events such as frustration, loud noises, etc., it produce a negative effect on them, mood. And these affect stimulates various thoughts, memories, expressive motor reactions and physiological responses, which is associated with fight and flight tendencies. So in cognitive neo-association theory, these aggressive thoughts, emotions and behavioral tendencies are linked together in memory. So the theory not only subsumes the earlier frustration aggression hypothesis, but it also provides a causal mechanism for explaining why aversive events increase aggressive inclinations through negative affect. So I have explained psychodynamic theory, frustration aggression theory, evolution theory and cognitive neo-association theory. Next is social learning theory. So this theory explains the acquisition of aggressive behaviors through observational learning processes, and it provides a useful set of concepts for understanding and describing the beliefs and expectations that guide social behavior. Okay. So it says that we are showing aggressive behaviors by observing others. So we are trying to imitate others' behaviors. Next is script theory. According to this theory, when children observe violence in the mass media, they learn aggressive scripts. So scripts define situations and guide behavior. The scripts are sets of particularly well-rehearsed, highly associated concepts in memory, often involving causal links, goals and action plans. Okay. Next is excitation transfer theory, which I have explained under the causes of aggression. So this theory says that arousal occurring in one situation can persist and intensify emotional reactions occurring in later unrelated situations. Often physiological arousal dissipates slowly over time. As a result, some portion of such arousal may persist as the individual moves from one situation to another. This residual excitement in turn can then transfer to new context and intensify any emotional experiences occurring in it. Next is social interaction theory. So here it is said that aggressive behavior an actor uses coercive actions to produce some change in the target's behavior. And this coercive actions is meant for information, money, goods, sex, services, safety, etc. and to exact retributive justice for perceived wrongs or to bring about desired social and self identities. Okay. Next is social information processing theory. Some individuals develop specific characteristics of social information processing in aggressive that enhance their risk of aggressive behavior. So these processes are inferred from the contents of memory store, acquired rules, social schemata and social knowledge. So according to this model, these individuals will be in many social situations. Like in that situation, the individual will perceive and encode the situation and social cues. They form a mental representation and interpret the situation They select a goal or desired outcome, and they recall or consider possible reactions, evaluate these reactions, and finally initiate what they expect to be an adequate action. So the theory states that this individual go through all these phases more or less automatically and with little if any reflection, although the processes may depend partially on dispositions of neuropsychological functioning and temperament. The content of SIP is attributed mainly to learning in social contexts. Okay. Next one is general aggression model. It's given by Anderson and Bushman. It is the last theory to explain aggression. They tried to integrate existing mini theories of aggression into a unified whole. The model is based on the concept of knowledge structures and how they operate to produce behaviors. So according to this theory, this aggression is a result or combination of two factors: situational factors and personal factors. Situational factors include frustration, exposure to other people behaving aggressively, then environmental factors like temperature, then extremely boring lecture, for example, then some kinds of provocations, etc., like insult, bullying, etc. And the personal factors, it include individual differences of different types which we find among people, like the traits, attitudes, beliefs about violence, a tendency to perceive hostile intentions in others' behavior, and the specific skills related to aggression, like knowing how to fight, how to use various weapons, etc. So these are some of the personal factors. So according to this model, these situational and individual variables lead to overt aggression through their impact on three basic processes like arousal, affective states, and cognition. Okay. So there ends the various theories that explain aggression. Now let's see how we can prevent and control aggression or violence. These are some of the useful techniques: punishment, self-regulation, forgiveness, non-violence, other methods of reducing aggression. Let's see one by one. Punishment, it can be defined as delivery of aversive consequences. This is a major technique for reducing aggression. So if a person shows aggression, that person will be punished to reduce further aggressive acts. Next comes self-regulation. It refers to internal mechanism for controlling aggression. Next is forgiveness, can be defined as giving up the desire to punish someone who has hurt us and seeking to act in a kind and helpful way towards them. So it is a kind of forgiveness. Next is non-violence. So it is a principle of peace that has been a part of Indian philosophy and has been advocated by Lord Buddha, Mahatma Gandhi, and others. So in this, non-violence helps to reduce aggressive acts. Then other methods of reducing aggression involves catharsis, cognitive intervention strategies, exposure to non-aggressive models, incompatible response, legislation decreasing anonymity, and prison reform. So catharsis, it refers to a view that if individuals give vent to their anger and hostility in relatively non-harmful ways, their tendencies to engage in more dangerous types of aggression will be found reduced. Then cognitive intervention strategies, exposing ourselves to non-aggressive models. Then training in social skills. So individuals who lack the social skill of communication, self-expressions, are basically insensitive to the feelings and emotions of others and are found to be more likely to become more aggressive. So what we are trying to do is giving training in social skills for those people who lack these skills. Then incompatible response. It is a technique for reducing aggression in which the individuals are exposed to events or stimuli that cause them to experience affective states incompatible with anger or aggression. This is another method. Then legislation, that is making stricter rules and regulations to curtail aggression. Then prison reforms. Urgent prison reforms are needed now so that the prisoners are rehabilitated and prisons do not become a place for networking further crimes. Then decreasing anonymity. Urban living arrangement fosters anonymity. At high-rise housing, the tenants should be made to make those spaces safer through good lighting, television monitoring, or the frequent presence of security personnel. So surveillance is necessary. Then attention should be devoted to designing buildings and communities in a manner that curtails crime. Lack of anonymity leads to lack of identity, and that can lead to aggressive behavior. So decreasing anonymity can help to control crimes. Another intervention strategies include parent training programs for reducing antisocial behavior among children, developing programs for parents, training using videotapes, then training programs for 1 day a week for 16 days, like that intensive programs can be given. Then parent training, because programs has been shown to be effective in improving parenting in quite damaged families and enabling children to come off at risk child protection registers. So failures of parent training can cause parental psychiatric difficulties, etc. Next, management of hyperactivity. Hyperactivity is distinct from conduct disorder, although they often coexist. So psychological treatment has to be rather different, and rewards have to be given more contingently and more frequently and have to be changed more often. So through behavior therapy we can reduce these kind of things. Then interventions at schools. So early preventive educational programs can reduce later aggressive behaviors. So these are some of the intervention strategies to reduce aggression among children and adults. Okay. So here comes the end of the session. I hope the session was useful for you. Thank you.